What's a funny memory you have that if you told someone, they'd think you were lying? This was a couple years ago, but I pulled up to a stoplight and another vehicle in the next lane also comes to a stop. The car is filled with what looks like high school kids. The kid in the passenger seat notices him, taps on his window and starts doing the universal sign for rock, paper, scissors. I look at the light, which is still red, and immediately think fuck it and play along, so we start. 1, 2, 3, shoot, and Wheatie. 1, 2, 3, shoot, Wheatie again. This keeps happening. All the young kids in the other car are involved and are screaming like whoa every time Wheatie. We literally got off like 15 rounds of rock, paper, scissors and tied every single time until the light turned green. I'm still high from that and hope all those goes are doing well. I love strange stoplight interactions. When I was in driver's training 15. Oh, I was out for me first ever drive with the instructor. And at the first stoplight we got to, a car with a couple older teenagers in it pulls up next to us, revs their engine, and the driver rolls down his window and looks over at me with one eyebrow arched and says, "Wanna race?" My instructor was not amused, but it helped me laugh and relax on me first drive. My wife and a close friend of ours had a recent game of three. We rock, paper, scissors. All three of us threw the exact same thing 4 times in a row. We decided to never play ERPs again and let that streak stand. The chance of 3 people throwing 4 exact hands in a row in ERPs, as it turns out, is 0. 15. 15. I can't imagine what the chances of yours was lol. All this happened to us once. Boyfriend and I had just gotten into the car when we realized we forgot something. I don't remember what. Maybe the grocery bags. We both tried to sweet talk the other or whine our way out of leaving the car to go back into the house to get them. So finally we decided to rock, paper, scissors for the honor. First time, same. Second time, same. Third time, shock and same. We both really did not want to get back out of the car again. I can't remember how long we sat there for, in fits of giggles and laughter, but I'm sure at least 10 rounds, maybe 15, and or 2, 5 minutes, always getting the same one. I'm trying to win. I was shouting. So am I, was his response. Until finally it was determined that clearly the gods meet for us to both return to the house and fetch our forgotten belongings together. I was checked in at a restaurant and gave the hostess my name to hold me slot. She then asked for me last name since the person below shared me first name. When I told her me last name, she looked at me like it was lying. She looks me like the person below had me first and last name. She laughed and introduced us, and we took a pic. I've never met someone with me same first and last name since. Same exact thing happened to my dad, and we have a rare surname that nobody in my family has ever met anyone else with before. Funny thing is, since moving to that city and publishing his number in the phone book, my dad had been getting calls or voicemails he didn't understand, including collections and the other guy's young daughter asking why he disappeared and when will she see him again. So my dad got to yell at the guy to get his shit together. Believe or not, my son shares a name first and last with another kid who was born on the exact same day in the same hospital. He still lives in the same town. We did find out until they both started school. Different schools, but each got a visit from the local education authority because they thought one pupil was double booked. My name is both regular and uncommon. It's just uncommon that me first name and last name are paired together. I work for a Fortune insert number here big company. There are two of us. I get her emails and Webex chats. I always friendly. Like direct them to the correct one of us. I've messaged her more than once. She has zero interest in corresponding with me. She has never once responded. Me. That's all right. I continue to forward her emails and Webex chats with regularity. I feel like, at this point, it's just kind of. In me job description. Sorry you've reached my name, but the wrong one. But, sorry, you've reached the one. The one you want is in her department and I am in my department. Please notice that our emails are one character apart. Please make a note of it in your address book. No worries. This happens a couple of days per week. I hope you have a great day and get your issue resolved. Smiley face emoji. Considering that she's never once responded to me, I figure there's all kinds of emails and Webex chats that I'm not getting. Shrugs, not me fault. Started college. Saw my brother's best friend on campus. From a distance. Hard to miss. Nate's 66. Skinny, long brown hair. Fitting of our childish friendship. Eye straight up open. Field tackle the guy. From behind. Blindsided. It's not Nate. I apologize and sheepishly run away. 3 hours later, a girlfriend from high school introduces her new boyfriend to a group of us. It's the guy I tackled. Danny. Super nice and forgiving guy. We've been friends for 15 years. That is 100 the way you make the best friends. Anybody that doesn't kick your ass immediately has to be cool. You have surely introduced Danny to Nate so that they've met their doppelganger. When I was 16, I went to this Christian youth group resort. Bunch of dorm-style rooms in apartments, some pools on the property. It's across the street from Panama City Beach. My friends and I were walking to the beach or whatever. I realized it left me sunglasses in the room, headed back saying that it'd catch up. When I did catch up, they told me that they'd seen me on a balcony with some other kids. They called my name. This person responded to my name. They asked how I got ahead of them and who was I hanging out with. It wasn't me, but a doppelganger who shared my name and appearance and choice of swim trunks and awesome shark tooth necklace. I did run into that kid, unfortunately. 15. 20 years later, my then and I were staying at a beach house some family of hers owned, near Panama City Beach. We were walking from the house to the beach. Being in the area reminded me, so I told her about this doppelganger at the youth group resort. Just as we arrived at the last street to cross before hitting the beach, there it was. I said, "Oh, well, it's right there. That's the place I was talking about." And there was the guy. I'm just kidding. That would have been a much more interesting ending. In university, there was a guy all me friends said I looked like. I never agreed, but others did. Once I was talking to him, the guy I apparently looked like, when a girl ran up behind me and basically jumped on me for a hug. Then she stopped and just said, "Oh, I thought you were him. I thought you were you were." So basically I got confused for a guy while I was talking to the guy. I sure hope that when he was introduced to you, you said, "Oh hey, did I run into you earlier?" I was in elementary school during recess, kinda daydreaming and looking at some ravens flying overhead, when one of them suddenly took a nosedive right into an open trash can. So, of course, I rush over there to check it out, but the raven was just gone out of nowhere. I was not the only pne who saw it though. Another kid came rushing over as well, and that's how I met me best friend for the next 4 years. Come to find out your friend was the raven the entire time. Cupid's lesser no brother who uses ravens to make people friends. What happened for you to not be best friends after 4 years? I got stung by a platypus. Tried to conquer the tri-state area again. When I was doing me first aid training in Melbourne, we were taught that an antivenom exists, but there are 70 known types of venom of the platypus. And the types assigned to each animal seem completely random. Types aren't passed on hereditarily, nor by region. So there's no point in administering an antivenom because you have at best a 1 in 70 chance of guessing it correctly. Isn't that supposed to be venomous? What ended up happening? A friend once called the wrong number, got the wrong house, and had the right person pick up. So was at work replacing a modem for me boss. It removed the modem and connected a telephone to test that it had dial tone. Soon after, the phone rang. It did make much sense, because that phone line had only been used for outgoing calls from the computer. When I picked up, the person on the other line just said, "Hey man, you want to see a movie later?" I recognized the voice too. It was a friend of mine. I was really confused for a second and said something like, "Josh, how did you get this number?" He said he called my home phone number. He must have misdialed my number and accidentally dialed the number for my boss's modem line at work. He called the wrong number, got the wrong house, and the right person picked up on a phone that had only been connected for 2 minutes in the past 2 years. The odds must be astronomical. It's just a weird coincidence that I'll always remember. I was called cold. Called friend I had heard from in 10 years. It was busy. I called again a few seconds later. His first words to me just called you. It was busy. We had not spoken in years and yet cold called each other within the same 10 seconds. It wasn't for any particular reason either. Just pure coincidence. That is actually insane. That is actually insane. How close were the numbers? I once read something similar here. Dude calls the wrong number, which ends up being his friend grandparents' house, where his friend was and picked up the phone. This is me favorite submission on the thread. As me favorite to the mission. Happened to me, but in a less remarkable way. At me first job out of university, I was working solo in an office in my home village. The never oozed landline rang and I picked it up. Heard a Sheffield accent on the line, rare in our part of the country, and had a cheerful conversation with the lady calling, a friend of my family. I guess I assumed she wanted to speak about something involving me job. Anyway, we chatted for a while. "So's your mum in?" she asked politely. "I'm at work. answered in total confusion. I eventually found out that the landline in the office never used was the same number as me parents' place, with the last two digits reversed. Before my husband and I were married, but had been dating for a long while, I was watching Portlandia, and bam, there's me husband on screen. Dumbfounded, I called him, and he casually said, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Is your husband Fred Armisen?" There's an episode of Scrubs where J sees the hospital janitor in a bit role from a big movie which was real. The janitor keeps denying it until he confesses he tried to become an actor years before. I had a friend who had a single scene in some Italian gladiator movie. He got hooked up with the gig while on vacation overseas. My roommate legally downloaded the movie and the scene comes up. My roommate is like, "Yo, this guy looks and sounds just like so and so." I call him up and he's like, "Oh yeah, I totally did that while was on vacation. Crazy story. Fucking bananas." My little brother took a few gigs as an extra in fish shows when he was 14 or 15 for some cash and because he wanted to get into acting. He has a few known speaking parts in things like Coronation Street, Waterloo Road, and Peaky Blinders. In Peaky Blinders, he was the lad that Arthur beats to death in like the second series. When he went to uni, he did really tell anyone about this kind of saw it as a failed attempt to get into acting, I guess, including his girlfriend. At uni, he's watching a new series of Peaky Blinders with his girlfriend. The mum of the lad he played had become a more major part again for a few episodes, and his girlfriend spots a picture on the mum's mantelpiece. It's him, plain as day. They'd taken one of his old headshots, photoshopped it into the right clothes, and stuck it on the mantelpiece. So that's how she found out he was in Peaky Blinders. I had a teacher who was an extra on that show. Got stuck in a bank for the night. When the bank is closed, you can still get to the atm thanks to a security door. Once inside, the door decided to stop working. No phone, no emergency button. Just waited here for hours till someone in the street saw me throw the glass and called someone. Did you get stuck in there with Victoria's Secret supermodel Jill Goodacre? I was in charge of a kid in the army that was obsessed with WoW. He got into the barracks and it didn't have high-speed internet yet mid-2000s, so he would lug his computer to the rec center every day to play after work. No, not his laptop. His monitor, his keyboard, his tower, his mouse, his headset. It was comical. Well, the first or second weekend, he was on a wait list for the internet. The rec center was closed for some remodeling. He makes a drug deal with the manager at think Ottany Mall to use their Wi-Fi and set up shop in the food court all Saturday. But it's a small base in the middle of a nice town, so they close at 5. The manager tells him he has to leave. The dude is pissed and says he paid for the whole day. He leaves with all his shit and crouches around the corner for the manager to lock up and leave. Of course, the little foyer with the Atman red box is still open all night long. The manager leaves and the dude creeps into the foyer area and sets up his shit, starts raiding or whatever while sitting on the floor. An hour or two later, some drunk girls that were pre-gaming come to use the Atma to get cash for a cab and see some kid sitting on the ground with a computer next to the Atma and call them, think he's hacking into the Atma to rob it. It'd say the kid never lived it down, but he was a complete clone anyway, and it was just one of many incredibly stupid and nerdy things he did while I knew him. Bonus. Years later, I'm telling that story and then tell another one of his. On that requires his name for the story to make sense. A dude goes, "What? What name did you say?" Turns out that guy was his boss later on and had similar stories of his dumb fuckery. I went to see Mitch Hedberg do stand-up. We stayed around all hoping to see him leaving. He never materialized though, so my husband and I walked towards our car. As we were walking, we heard a woman yell from an "Ollie, hey, Mitch Hedberg is back here signing autographs." We walked around the corner behind a scary old building. It was like O'Neill and pretty dark. There was Mitch Hedberg and no other fans. Just him and his wife, who had been the one to yell about autographs. He was very high and super lovey. He hugged my husband and me and told us what his fans mean to him. He took pictures of us for his scrapbook page online. He was also hilarious. We were just there behind a building at O'Neill with Mitch Hedberg and his wife laughing and hugging deep into the wee hours. When I tell people this, they go silent and am not sure why. I figure they don't believe it. If it was any other comic, I'd be skeptical, but this seems very much like the kind of thing he'd do. Just get all full of hugs and laugh. My mom likes to tell the story about how George Carlin called her jailbait. Not nearly as cool, but I think could hold that trophy for years too. Mitch was so friendly. A friend and I met him in a bar below the hotel he was staying at after one of his shows. It was in 1999 and I lived in a smaller town but was moving to California soon. He wrote down his address, phone number, and email to stay in contact. Ended up hanging out with him and his wife at Largo in Hollywood a couple years later, and his popularity had skyrocketed by then. By far the most down-to-earth celeb I've ever met. I believe you. We just feel sad that has gone. That is I used to believe you. I still do, but I used to, too. I also used to believe this joke is overplayed. I still do, but I used to, too. I peed on a bear once at 12 or 13. Some background: I lived in a mountain cabin with some family, aunts and cousins and stuff. The cabin was small, but we had several acres, so we had about 4 of trailers for the rest of the family. 2 were me aunts on was for weed, and the last and closest smallest was for children, which was just me brother and I at the time. Anyhow, it was a cold wintry day with fresh snow as I wake up having to piss so bad I'm surprised I did wet the bed. I'm groggy as hell and my eye barely open as I head to the trailer door and open it start me morning leak. I did not notice the bear less than 2 feet away, so close I could pet him if I leaned a bit forward with its head in the garbage can until I was halfway done when it moved. So, of course, it turned my whole body in my half-asleep state in to see what moved, and I finally notice agent brown furry thing and am pissing all over its hind left thigh and leg as I'm wondering what it is as the bear lifts its head and looks at me. We stare at each other for a moment as my actions begin to dawn on me. A moment later, I finish. The bear and I stared at each for several moments until I took a step back, shut our flimsy door, and locked our deadbolt that would have been useless had the bear decided I insulted his honor. And I went back to bed listening and waiting until I eventually went back to sleep. Now imagining this story from the bear's perspective. So I was getting some food in a trash can. When I peeked my head out of it, suddenly there was this human just standing there. Then he turned to me and just pissed on my leg. When he finished, he went inside again. Texans, I tell you. One was for weed. I like that you include weed as part of your family. I was laughing so hard after just the first 5 words. What a world we live in. I was the brokest I have ever been, living in the middle of nowhere. I was pulling me last $20 out of a gas station at. I hit the button and it spit out $60. I was only charged 20 on me account. It sounds like such a tall tale, but I swear it happened. This is like a side plot of an episode of Frasier. Martin was using a bank app and it spit out an extra 0. He tries to return the 0, but due to a series of misunderstandings, ends up with a 0 payout. This actually does happen. Worked at a bank with a shitty at. Probably 60. 100 a week extra given out, and then they finally had it repaired lol. I've worked in the copier or printer industry for over 30 years. I've always joked that ATs must have amazing double feed prevention rollers to never have cash doubled, even when it's all wadded up. That being said, I approached an admin inside a local grocery store, and they also had a small branch of the bank there too. I took out zero, and when I reached in, there was zero laying in the tray. It did double feed. It was left there. So I picked it up and walked around the corner to the bank kiosk and started trying to explain to the teller what happened. She cut me off immediately, thinking I was trying to say it did give me the money I had requested. She was rude and demeaning. I just said thanks for the extra zero and turned to walk off. The manager stopped me before I got out the door. He apologized profusely, and I explained to him that I was going to try another time when the teller was there, because I was certain this was left by someone who used the ad just prior to me. An eagle came for me face as a child. I was about 8. I ducked and it ended up grabbing my hair and taking some with it. I ran inside crying and told my mom. She did believe me, so I never told anyone else. I'm 22. Were you wearing a dead fish on your head? Well, you did tell me just now. Birds can do some weird things. A few days ago me ice cream got pushed out of my hands by a seagull. They ate it afterwards. I had a pet hummingbird as a kid. My mom found it injured on a sidewalk and nursed it back to health. It only had one eye and no depth perception, so we kept it inside. We'd let it buzz around the room, land on us and all that jazz. My brother told his teacher about it in 3rd grade, and the teacher actually called my mom and was like, "Your son has made up a crazy story and insists it's real." Reality was we had a pet hummingbird, and that seemed crazy enough people didn't believe it. How long did it live? We had a kingfisher, European kingfisher, at our pond. Now, what is important to know is that kingfishers are quite rare in and on themselves and only pass through our country during migration, I think. I don't know how it came up, but in about 3rd grade it came up during science class of me cousin that a kingfisher is visiting every summer. Her teacher scolded her heavily on her leaves. Heavily enough for her to be pissed. She marched over, waited, took a time-stamped photo, went to get it developed and slammed it on the teacher's desk. She apparently got her well-earned apology. I have a similar story. In the 3rd grade, during a parent-teacher conference, the teacher pulled out an art assignment as an example of me not following directions. You see, has got a good imagination but is having a hard time listening. We were supposed to draw our living rooms, and you can see he did that, but then he added the banana tree and alligators. My dad. Well, the banana tree is actually a bit smaller than that, but that's actually 4 alligators and a caiman. See the difference in nose. My dad was in the exotic pet trade and grew tropical plants as a hobby. My picture was exactly what me living room looked like. Back in middle school, I was walking back to class after lunch when some meun chucked something down the hallway as hard as they could. My natural instinct was to jump up and catch it. It was a perfect catch, and not a single person saw. It was a mozzarella stick. Did you eat at it? Get down, Mr. President. What a wonderfully weird moment. I had something similar happen in. But it was a joint and at a buddy's house. We only had one tiny joint amongst a room full of potheads, so we discreetly passed the joint back and forth like a game of hot potato. As the joint dwindled down, I gave it one last pass to him, and he caught it precisely between his 2 fingers right in front of his lips. We laughed about that ninja shield for years. He's in prison now. I was walking on a hiking. or biking trail when a woman rode past me on her bicycle. I yelled out, "Keep the pedal to the metal." Not 2 seconds later I hear an awful metallic noise and turn to see the poor woman's pedal mechanism had fallen apart. She told me you shouldn't have said that. I apologized profusely and asked if she needed any help. Naturally, she did not from me anyway. We apparently share a superpower. When I was a kid, we were at a Christmas tree farm. They had a little train that took you around the farm. I was sitting at the front when I asked the driver if we could go off roading. The train derailed a second later. The look the driver gave me when he asked what I had just said scared the crap out of me. Thought the dude was gonna knock out a 10-year-old. The fact that she seemed to blame you for the accident makes this so much funnier. Next time, remember to use your powers for good. It's not really funny, but I shot a hole in one while golfing by myself when I was 16. Why, why all so? Why, I 6 say, I I'm 7 to 7 now. What? It wasn't one of those beautiful arching shots. No. It was a warm burner that I thought ended up in a little stream behind the hole because it appeared to disappear off the back of the green. Looked for 20 minutes before just walking by the hole. I got a hole in one in mini golf, except it was the wrong hole. I love a good golf story like this. I once hit an eagle on a par 5 cause my third shot went wide, ricocheted off a tree branch and rolled in the hole. My grandpa did this. Was at a golf outing, and they had one of those hit a hole in one and get a free car things. To enter. My Gramps goes on a rant about it being a waste of money. Nobody ever wins these, it's just a con etiquettes. Everyone buoys in but him. They all hit first, naturally no hole in ones. Grandpa walks up, hits it perfect and nails a hole in one. I've never seen anyone angrier to have gotten a hole in one in my life. I was playing 8 ball at a bar one night. I'm not very good, just play for fun. I'm on a slight winning streak. My next opponent racks them, and I break. 8 ball goes in on the break, so it's an automatic win. Dude refuses to leave the table, continues to put quarters in and racks again. I'm like, dude, you lost. There's like 8 people in line to play next. He's drunk and being stubborn and won't leave. So I break again. And the 8 ball drops again. Dude walks away without saying a word. I have to believe this because I've only ever pocketed the 8 on a break twice in my life, and both happened within the same week. Anyone bail on the line after seeing the 8 pocket on break twice in a row? In 2000, I was selling ecstasy in a club. I was very high and not very discreet about it. At the time, no club owner really cared, but it was tacky to be out in the open. I get grabbed by security, zipped into cuffs, and stuffed out the side door. Pocket full of cash and drugs. I'm totally fucked. Cops have been called and are on their way. Janet, a friend of mine, saw me get thrown out and ran for her car, a Mitsubishi Eclipse. I'm standing there with on a shoal security who says he's a cop off duty. Janet pulls up, opens the door, and screams, "Get him!" Handcuffed, I jump in the car and the door slams as she hits the gas. Clean fucking getaway. I have been clean for 14 years. Thank God. Everyone deserves to have a movie equality moment at some point in their lives. I worked at this restaurant that was near a dueling piano bar. We usually gave them half off. They would pour us cheap, super stiff drinks. As such, we would tend to go there if one of us, a birthday or something. One night we were there, and it was a massively busy night. We were all just standing around and drinking, enjoying ourselves and trying to ignore the scores of frat boys and sorority girls that typically frequented that establishment. That typically they sorely they that's when these two older dudes, a white guy and an Indian guy, approached us and asked if we had any weed we could sell them. They said we looked like the guys to talk to. To be fair, they were correct. There were 8 of us there, and between us we probably had at least 4 ounces. They didn't need much, they told us. Just something for the night. Obvious cop move, right? We told them as much, letting them know we weren't there to get arrested and to fuck off. They pleaded. We laughed. They walked away dejected. About an hour later, the piano players, remember, dueling piano bar, announced that they had found out they had some special guests in the audience. No Doubt would be playing in Dallas the next night, and the guitarist and bass player were in the audience, and, if we all asked nicely, maybe they would come play a couple songs with them. Lo and behold, the older white dude and Indian dude walked up on stage and played Just a Girl in Spiderwebs with the fine folks of the dueling piano bar. And that's the story of the time we did sell weed to No Doubt because they looked like fucking cops. They do look like fucking cops. I tripped and fell at the same corner outside Subway 3 different times years apart, and the same guy tried to catch me every single time. Edit. Okay, I keep getting loads of soulmate or marriage comments, so to clarify, I was 7 the first time this happened. This was a grown man low. Edit 2. This man is not a stalker or pedophile. Him and me mum would recognize each other because she was with me each time. Yes, he fell trying to catch me, but it was funny, so it's okay. And no, this was not the underground train type of subway, I mean the sandwich shop. He did not work there, and no, he is homeless. Fuck's sake. Getting a lot of the same comments. And no, he wasn't tripping me, we would be walking opposite directions. And no, his name is Robbie. Does tried mean that he failed every time. Because that's the bit I find the funniest. Like, not only is this guy there every time you fall, but he also constantly fucks up the save. You just reminded me of this. My brother worked at a Burger King in high school and would ride his bike to and from when the weather permit. He got hit by a car once, he was fine, and a witness thought to call his work and tell his boss what happened and that he was going to the hospital. A year later it happened again, and again a witness called his boss and said he was hit by a car and was going to the hospital. The guy came back to me, brother, explained that he called and that his boss said what? Again. Naturally, the woman who hit him saw this as a reason to claim she was at fault. Are you guys married now? Not quite as dramatic, but similar. I was waiting to cross at an intersection and it started to pour rain, and a man asked if we could share my umbrella. I did. We walked a block or so and went separate ways. Later on the same day, I was again crossing the same intersection the other way, and again it just started to rain really hard, and the same man was there and sidled up under my umbrella. Me being black does not mean I am good at basketball. I said before lazily throwing the ball backwards over my head for a three-pointer. Reminds me of a coach I had when playing basketball as a teenager. He was trying to explain the importance of watching where you are aiming while taking a layup. He was stood at the halfway line and said if you aren't looking where you're throwing, it's got as much chance of going in as this. He then threw it backwards over his shoulder and straight in the net. It undercut his point a little bit, but at least it always stuck in my mind.